Thanks everybody for joining in the second part of today's session. As we discussed earlier, this session is going to be more and more hands-on session where Rajiv, agent for specialist from Chennai, joined us today to provide some insight. Rajiv is one of the specialists in Agentforce who closely working in Agentforce area and who is closely monitoring the latest updates in Agentforce. Because as you know, Agentforce things are rapidly changing time to time. Even yesterday you are seeing something, today it will be gone. That's kind of a situation in the Agentforce, but he's really up to date with latest changes and things happening even in the product level. First of all, thanks a lot, Rajiv, joining us today with your tight schedules and everything. We really appreciate it. And yeah, it's over to you.
Yeah. So while I discuss anything, and then like if you have any questions or if you are not able to understand anything, just drop a comment in the chat. I'll be monitoring it, and if there is anything that I can explain better, I'll do that as well. So I'll take a step back, and then yeah, my name is Rajiv. I'm a solution architect specifically for like contact center solutioning. I pretty much work on like Service Cloud and then like move to Agentforce space. Uh, so we'll take a step back and then like understand how AI evolved within like Salesforce space. I'll show you a couple of features, and then like we'll get into Agentforce. The reason that we wanted to like take a step back is that there are features that might be actually useful in terms of setting it up, not just with respect to like Agentforce, but in general AI space. So if you would have seen any Sales Cloud tech or like anything that is specific to AI, you might have seen that it started with predictive AI, then they moved on to generative AI, Copilot, agentic AI, and then like robotics would be later. But then in context, that is in context of like general AI. But then if you look at Salesforce specifically with AI, you have something called as predictive AI, generative AI, and agentic AI. So predictive AI is where you have certain amount of data. It can be lead records, opportunity records, or even case data. So based on the historical records in Salesforce, we would actually able to like build a model within Salesforce and then like predict the outcomes. It may be whether a lead would be converted or not, whether a case gets escalated or not. And then based on how the conversation is going with the customer, it can be chat or case record. You'll be able to see something called as next best actions. These are kind of rules driven, so you need to like configure how it needs to like show suggestions or like predict the output. So there is a model behind the scenes that gets trained. Along with that, you'll have certain score. So if the score goes beyond like 70 percentage, or like let's say out of 10, you would say that if it goes beyond 7 or 8, then that's a good score, and then like show this recommendation. So most of the time it is related to the scoring, and then like a recommendation would be shown. This is where predictive AI was there for a very long time, and then like it was very hard for us to like move to generative AI space. And generative AI space is where like it evolved when you might have started to hear about ChatGPT in like 2021, at that time when transformers were introduced. So until predictive AI, it was able to predict data based on your historical data, meaning that you need to like run a model and train the model, and based on that you will have results. But generative AI is where it was able to generate the content. It's kind of a prediction where it will know what should be the next word or the next sentence would be. But that's where like we were able to understand how Salesforce is able to generate new content. So when I say generate new content, meaning it was able to like generate emails, write new knowledge articles, and then like it was able to like generate summaries as well. This was pretty useful, and this is where you might have heard something called as Einstein for Salesforce, where they segregated into Cloudwise. So you might have seen Einstein for sales, Einstein for service, and Einstein for marketing. This was in like late 21, 22. Now, with this, it increases agents' productivity. Think it from a call center perspective where you have to manually take notes, manually track what are all the next steps that you'll have to take. This generative AI piece actually helped agents perform better, and they were able to like spend a lot of time on actually being on calls rather than like drafting what happened in the call. So it's kind of creative where you'd be able to tell the system what is the content that it has to generate, but along the way, this is where you might have heard something called as human in the loop, that no matter what, whatever the content that gets generated, it has to be reviewed by the human. And that's when later agentic AI came into place. This is where you might have heard something called as Atlas Reasoning Engine, where it was able to think, execute actions without even human being there. So agentic AI is right now placed in a place where you can autonomously execute tasks that are like very simple. For example, if I have to like show any answers to customer, I can directly show it without human in the loop because those are like the very simple tasks. So that's where you're able to like do autonomous agents. So it can retrieve data, it can think, and then like it will be able to take multi-step actions as well. Along with that, here you will define something called as guardrail, which are like key important for your AI models to tell what it can do versus what it can't do. So it can't directly refund for a smaller issue, right? That's where like you would need human to like review it and then, like approve those changes. So you will specifically tell Agentforce or like any AI model to tell these are the actions that it can take versus what it can't do. So, for example, you might have seen something called as next best actions. You might have lead scoring and also like forecasting and recommendations. These were all model driven, and this is more of predictive AI. Generative AI features are like content creation, like knowledge articles, and then like emails come into content creation, where we were able to summarize the records and we were able to like create new knowledge articles or like draft new knowledge articles. Agentic AI is where Agentforce is placed, where autonomously it was able to like execute actions. It is context aware, meaning it is able to understand who the customer is, who's their account, and context is actually the data here. And it would be able to like take actions proactively instead of waiting for certain days to cross or anything. If it sees there is a possibility of something going wrong based on the data, it would be able to take proactive actions as well. Now, pretty much right now, any project or like any customer that is looking for would be interested either in Gen AI or Agentic AI if they haven't like started with. So Gen AI features are like little different than the Agentic AI because like Gen AI kind of uses prompt templates where you'd be able to like still customize it. It's not heavy lifting, but you'd be able to like still do something that the customer has requested for. So example, like drafting an email and then like entering conversation insights or something related to voice and video calls within Salesforce. So you'd be able to ask questions to AI, what happened in the call or what are all the next steps actions. So if you have used any note takers right now, it used to like join the calls and then like it used to provide the summary. And if you have like enough credits, you'd be able to ask further questions. That's the same concept of entering conversation insights within Salesforce. Whereas for agentic AI, you have sales coach, sales development rep, pipeline management, and then like employee agent. If it is like completely new, which is pretty fine because like we'll concentrate more on like service cloud part, but then like just wanted to let you know that there are like certain features that are in service sales cloud as well, which can be utilized. And for service cloud is where it depends on the object again. Like if you're on a case record, there are like certain features. If you're on a chat or messaging session record, it would have like certain features. But service replies are something it automatically generates response for you based on the conversation. And then like once the chat is ended, it will provide you a summary of what was the issue that the customer reached out, what is the resolution and other things. Whereas in agentic AI, pretty much you might have like worked on anything on the trailhead called as like agent for service agent, which is customer facing. And this is more of like chat facing, but Salesforce also has a feature similar to email as well. And similar to asking questions in the chat, you'd be able to ask questions via email. And you have like employee agent here as well. So any questions until now, or like it is too hard, or this information is like pretty new for you? Okay, I'll move on to the next two core topics. One is your employee agent, and another one would be your service agent. So, employee agent is something that is customer uh, employee facing. So it can be your internal sales user, service user, or anyone who has access to your Salesforce, or they'll have access to this widget. So they would have access to this widget that will tell you like Agentforce, and then like they can start interacting with this widget. So similar like your chat GPT externally, which doesn't have context. This Agentforce widget is something internal to Salesforce, where it's kind of a chat GPT version, but understands all of your data within Salesforce. So for example, if I'm on a home page, you're seeing that it doesn't show any recommendations here because like it is on a home page. But if I quickly switch to an opportunity, it will be able to like show some basic recommendations here because this window kinds of tracks what are all the objects that you are being shifting towards. So it is context aware, meaning that it knows which tab that you are in. So I was in homepage, it didn't show me any recommendations, but the moment that I switched to contact opportunities list view, it was able to like show me some random recommendations. So similar to that, if it is on a lead, it will change its recommendations, and you'd be able to like ask more information about it. So the advantages of employee agent is that whoever is the logged in user, so if I'm a system admin, have access to all the records. Any action that I execute, it will consider my access and then it gets executes. But for example, if there is a employee with different profiles, it always considers the login user's context, meaning that if they don't have access to certain objects, it will not execute those actions. And it also considers field level security as well. So if I don't have access to certain fields, then it won't get that information here into Agentforce as well. And when I say that all actions are performed based on this user, if you are having like any actions, for example, if you have flows and effects that has to be executed, it gets executed on behalf of this user. And let's say if I try to generate any responses, this again, I'll tell you like how this works. But what happens behind the scenes is that it goes to LLM and then like generates a response. But any response that gets generated, you'll always have a feedback icon like this, whether the content is good or you don't find this content accurate. So when you click dislike on this, you'd be able to like provide feedback, and this gets tracked in Data Cloud. But you will be able to like provide feedback, which kinds of fine tunes the model later. So that's where for employee facing or like internal users, they always have the capability to provide feedback to the Gen AI generated responses. So again, understand the difference between Gen AI features and agentic AI features. So Gen AI feature is something that is not taking any actions rather than it's just generating content. But agentic AI is where it is actually taking the actions on your behalf. And in general, any customer that is looking to implement employee agent is something that they're always looking to improvise productivity, reduce time and like handling small tasks. For example, like I would spend, let's say, 2 to 3 minutes in drafting an email, ensuring that I have all information correct, rather than now I'd be able to use employee agent to like draft an email. And at the end of the day, whether it is employee agent, employee facing agent, or like customer facing agent, everyone is like looking to improve the customer satisfaction. So if in case that you're developing any feature, always don't see it just at the technical perspective of like how do you do it, but also think about in a way how it impacts the customer. So that way you always talk about the business values as well. So though we are talking about like more into technical aspects, but always keep into consideration with this feature, how it is going to impact the customer in business terms or like business outcomes. So that way you'll be able to like talk with customer when you're engaging or like when you're providing a solution to someone, you get to talk about the business values as well. And that is what matters at the end of the day. Now, today we are here in employee agent, but then like, did it come directly? No, since Salesforce released, it has been evolved, and then we are in like the version 3. I'll cover this, but then like initially it was called as Instant Copilot. Later it was changed into Agentforce default, and right now we are in employee agent version. So I kept the versioning. Salesforce doesn't do this versioning aspect, but then it's just for the ease of understanding to understand like what was version 1 and version 2 and version 3. Version 1, when it was introduced, you had only actions in it, meaning there was no topics, there was no instructions. When you ask something, it would just try to execute something. And there was no Atlas reasoning engine there, so it was not able to reason as well. So if you try to ask a question, if it was able to identify an action, it would just execute it. That's all. And that's when it was actually called as Copilot. That's the reason there was no Atlas reasoning engine or topics or instructions. That's when Agentforce was released with the core of Atlas reasoning engine at its brain. And how it works is based on the topic and instructions that you write. So it will able to reason and get more information from you. Uh, but the problem here with employee facing agent force is that you had only one agent, irrespective. Let's say you have like multiple sales department and service departments in your org. If you have to maintain certain topics and instructions, it was like hard to maintain because there was only one agent and everyone were able to access it. Uh, so it was like very hard to maintain, and Salesforce listened to the feedback of customers, and then like that's when they introduced the employee agent. That's kind of version 3, where you can have multiple employee agents focusing on like one agent per department, or you can still go to like one agent per record type if you have a set of case records that are being handled, and if you want to like handle it better, you can have like multiple agents. So here the maintenance is easy because like you're able to split the topics and instructions based on the use cases, and this way like it is not broad, it is restricted to certain users having access to certain topics and actions. And this is kind of extended via permission sets and all that you always have reasoning engine. So let's see if I have this. I don't have this. I'll show you how to do this. But again, just wanted to help you understand how it evolved. The reason that why it matters is that you get to understand how the features are like evolving. Again, like what is there versus what is not there. For example, if I just switch here and then if I have enabled a Agent Screen setup, if I go to Agentforce agents, you would always see an employee agent by default. This is where it is called as version 2. Though it is called as Instant Copilot, you'd still have Atlas Reasoning Engine. This is not something that we are using right now. And then like if I try to create a new agent, there are like certain org permissions. If you have it, you would be able to say it right now. The org that you're using doesn't have access to this feature. So that's the reason that when you try to create a new agent, you don't see that Agentforce employee agent. I'll try to see it on a different org. So I try to create a new agent, it still doesn't have. 1 second. If not, I'll share you an URL by the end of the session, which you would be able to see that. 1 second, let me try it in one last arc. So for employee agent, you have a different version to like initiate when you create a developer edition org, you would have to do that in a different URL. It's not the normal developer edition org that you spin up. So I'll share you the URL by the end of the session. But that's how like you spin up an employee agent. And ideally you should see a version called as employee instead of digital agent. So okay, it is still called as employee. Let me quickly check it in a different org. And again, like there are like pretty much new features getting developed every day. So you might not actually get to the latest features unless you Salesforce say so, or you'd have, okay, I have it in this org. I'll bring in another screen. So this is where I just print up a new org, and if I try to like create a new agent here, you'd be able to see these many different types of templates, and you can see something called as Agentforce employee agent. I'll try to create one and then show you what's the difference. Let's create a service agent as well so that like you understand the differences. So in my first screen, it is a service agent, and the second tab is where employee agents. So I've selected employee agents, and the second page is topics, which is fine. Now this is where I'm customizing it, and this screen is important. So you have the name, description, role, which is all fine, company, and then like you see an information where you want to like log all the conversations. If I switch to service agent, you see something called here as like agent user, meaning behind the scene, Salesforce is trying to create a user which would run on this behalf, which I'll cover it, but that's the key information. So the service agent is something that is customer facing that runs on a different user behalf, but the employee agent runs on your behalf. So you don't have to like create a user here. So for now, I'll just fill this and I'll like click on next. And then like I'll directly create it. Let's see here. Okay. There could be something wrong while I enable the agent, but if you can see this, that's the difference that employee agent always runs on your contacts, meaning whoever is the logged in user, it knows it and then like it runs it on behalf of that user. But customer facing agents are the ones that actually runs on a different user, which I'll talk more about it. So let me go back here. So I'll just open this Copilot still because it is the same version, just that it has different flavors. But ideally, if you go into the builder, I'll just deactivate it just to ensure that I can edit anything. So to start with, you have topics, you have data where you'd be able to like include any data libraries that you have created, and you have something called as context and then like events. So while enabling it, you might have seen something that I've enabled here to log the event. So all events that any conversation that happens gets logged in these events where you'd be able to see what the customer has asked and whether you're able to like see the responses here. This is pretty much useful for like troubleshooting. Uh, to start with in an employee agent, you can always go into this new and then like add from asset library. So Salesforce has shipped out of the box many topics. So I'm gonna include everything because this is where you get to learn a lot of things. So for example, I'll just look into account management. Let's say if I'm an internal user who needs to understand a particular account, whatever questions that I would ask is something that let's say how many contacts are there, who's the contact who's raising most number of cases. It again differs from if your customer or if your use case is more related to sales use case or service use case. Based on that, your question differs, and all your questions can be drafted here as instructions. I'll tell you like easier way to like write these instructions as well, but once you get that information, whether you want to execute a flow or Apex or something, that you'd be able to like do it in actions. And for example, Salesforce has pretty much most of the actions. But if let's say if I try to go into an action where I'll be able to see more information, when I click on this pop-up, I'll be taken into that particular action here or the flow. So let's see if Salesforce has done that or not. Because any flows that you see here that is shipped by Salesforce out of the box might not actually have the information that we need, meaning that it is just a template. It might not actually work. That's where like you'll have to go tweak all this decision elements or the assignment elements based on your use case. It doesn't mean that it will always work, rather than like it's just a template for us to understand how to build it better. But at the same time, if in case based on the use case that you want to change anything, you'll be able to like alter it. It's just that a boilerplate flow or a Apex class they would provide it, And then you would always enhance from this based on the use case. Let me still go into. Okay, so when I included all these topics, you would see this globe icon, which means it is a standard one. We won't be able to like edit it unless you create a new version out of it. So for example, if I create a custom one for this, is it a custom? For a custom one, you would always see something called as add instructions, which means that you'd be able to like add more information. But if you have included anything from the asset library, it always shows in the globe icon. So when you click on that particular topic, you will have to like click on new version, meaning that you're making changes. So for example, I'm going to tell that if customer asks for account, let's say lead, confirm if the it is so lead is related to the account. So over a period of time, Salesforce always wanted to like make users a little free from like switching between like multiple LLM models. For example, when we or at least like when I started to like begin writing these instructions, I was not a good prompt engineer. So what I would do with that, I would just write all my use case. For example, if the use case is that it is more of sales, so I would check if the lead exists or not. If not, I would try to create a new lead and then like attach it to a account. So I would just draft it in like step-by-step process. I would either give it to Gemini or ChatGPT to like to draft it as instructions. And then I would come back here and then like copy paste it. That's where initially it was there, but then like Salesforce was trying to enhance all the features internally within the Salesforce environment. So when you're trying to write something and then like if it is hard for the LLM to understand, then it won't execute or it might not give you desired outputs. That's where you have this enhanced icon. When you click on it, it will try to understand and then like it will see if it is able to understand it or not. If it is not able to understand, it will actually rewrite it and give it to you so that you can just add it here. So for example, I wrote if customer asks for a lead, confirm if the lead is related to the account. It might be easy for me or you to understand, but then like LLM thinks in a different way. So that's the reason that if the written instruction is not actually valid or it was hard for LLM to understand, it will redraft it and show it here. So if you like this, if this is what you wanted to achieve, you can always click on like accept changes so that like it is easier for an LLM to like execute or understand this instructions. But let's say if you are on a well-written instruction and then like still click on this icon, it might not show you any suggestions. It says that it is clear, concise, and specific, so you don't have to like rewrite it. So this is something definitely uh, improved my time instead of like switching between other things where I was able to like write better instructions. So this is one, and you can always save it. Now, let's say if I'm creating a brand new instruction or a topic, so I would just go on to like a new topic, and either you can click on next directly where it tries to create a topic and instructions, or you can go back here and then like define the use case. Now, let's say I want to greet the customer and ask what questions do they have related to account contacts, leads. Let me keep this into service perspective, messaging sessions. So I'm just writing a use case. When you click on next, it thinks and then like it drafts the topic for you, where you can see that account and contact assistance. It creates a description, it creates the scope, and then like it writes the instructions for you. This would be a very starting point for any of the use case because when we try to write it, we might not write the description and scope in a better way. That's where it is most important. But this would be a good starting point. All you need to know is what is the use case that you're trying to solve. Once that is identified, if you just write it here, Salesforce will generate it for you. So first process is you can always start small. So all you have to think of a use case and then like put it here, and you would already have a topic and instructions here. Now, if in case that you want to add more instructions, that's where you write it and then use this enhance icon just to ensure that the LLM understands this. And the next step is adding actions, which can be added later as well. But when you click on finish, you'll be able to see that it is already there. Any questions until now? If I'm going fast or like slow, let me know so that like I can increase or decrease the pace as well. And I'll just remove all these topics so that I can show you the other troubleshooting things as well. More than your actions that you spend time, the time that you spend is on instructions and then like how do you improvise it. If you are a developer or if you have worked on like flows or Apex, you can do pretty much everything. But let's say close to 60% of your development will stay within this because you might not always get the desired output here. So now let's say we have a topic here which has instructions, but it doesn't have any actions. So similar to how like we try to add topics, we also have out of the box actions. And these actions are specific for employee agents only. For example, query records, query record with aggregates, and then identify objects. Let me go from the top. So you see these icons, right? You can see that this is an Apex class, this is a flow, and anything apart from that, you can see from the variation of icons. So these are the standard actions that Salesforce provides. You might not actually find a better explanation. I wouldn't say explanation rather than like how it is being developed. You might not have a visibility, but you will always see documentation to understand what are all the out of the box uh, actions that Salesforce brings in. So I'm just going to include all this for now. So these are the standard actions that Salesforce shipped in. So when you ask, uh, or let's say when you ask for a particular lead, or if I get into a lead record and ask more information about it, what happens is that it has access to this lead ID, which get passed to this particular query record action. One second, yeah, query not included. So there are, yeah, query record action, and it will be able to like provide more information. So in a typical use case, if we know the lead ID, we would just use SOCL in developer console to return all the fields. But that's where these actions are like predefined by Salesforce. And this is specific only for employee agents. This is not available for external users or like the service agent, rather than it is only available for employee agents, which you can utilize it instead of like writing your own Apex class or like own flows. You could always start with you utilizing this standard actions, which kinds of give you more information. And for complex use cases, you can always create a custom action or Apex or flow. But to start with, you can always start here. Now, while you're in the conversation preview, you would see this refresh icon, which means it removes all your pre-existing chat here. So for example, if I just type hi, whatever the response that it comes in, I can do multiple testing and other things, but I can always clear this out. And this eye icon is a very important one where you'd be able to like set the context here. For example, while I was here, you know that it was able to understand that I was on a home page, I was on an opportunity record or a lead record, but this is within the UI itself. But within the builder, how do I test it is where you'd be able to like click on that eye icon and you'd be able to set context here. So I can go here that I'm on a sales app. Okay. Can go here and then like type the app name. Okay, it gives me options. So I'm typing in sales and I'm on a record page. And this is a lead. Okay, I'm on a lead record and it is still letting me search for it. Sorry. So you can still search for records so that like you can set the context here. And then, like when you apply, it says preview conditions and if I apply. So if I just say hi, it would have context that I'm on a lead record. And then it was trying to show some recommendation, but since I'm not on an actual UI page, it didn't show me that recommendations. Else I'll be able to see that. Now let's say show me all fields of this lead. And you can still do any mistakes here, but it will be able to like still understand it. So we'll start from the beginning. I said hi. And since there was only one topic, it was able to like execute these topics where I have like multiple instructions and then like the actions. And then it also shows you the prompt used. You might not actually need this for now unless like you're troubleshooting, but you'll also see the agent response here. Now let's say the second thing I told is that show me all fields of lead. You can see that it got into like get record details, which is like the standard action which passed the record ID from the context. And then if you have seen the one second, let us see if it is a standard action or a custom action. Okay, get record details is a standard action. So how do I identify if it is a standard action or a custom action? Just looking at here is that you would always see that up arrow icon, which would actually take you to the flow or a prompt builder on our Apex class. Since there is nothing, this is actually shipped by Salesforce out of the box. Now it returned the snapshot. Snapshot is something that you might have looked into Prom Builder. If not, like I'll show it to you while covering the Prom Builder. It returns all the fields based on your page layout. So whatever fields and the related records that you have on your page layout, it tries to like return it. So it returned me all this information. Now, let's say while you are debugging or if you're actually developing a use case and you don't know like how to proceed, or you might check that this is not the desired output that I want. So you see something called a suggest improvement where it tells you like what is the incorrect response and what should be the actual response. So in this case, my customer told me, or like I'm developing a use case where I don't want to display all the fields rather than like I want to display only, let's say, only display full name. I need to know the title, email, and let's say industry of the lead information. So it is again natural language. The only problem thinking about is that you'll have to kind of think your use case very well. What is the input that you want to gather from customer? What is the output? So you'll have to envision it at the first, and then you'll be able to like do all this on the go. So if I just hit on submit, it will tell me which instruction that I'll have to change. So it will tell me add an instruction to this particular topic. So it tells that when retrieving details of a record, limit to the displayed fields. Those are explicitly requested by the user. If the user does not specify, then prioritize these fields. This is something that I haven't like added here as an instructions, but then just based on like initial testing, I can always click on like suggest improvement. So this way I'll get to know what is that instructions that I have to add. So again, this is the same thing that we used to do with different LLMs that I used to go to ChatGPT, give this entire response and ask ChatGPT to write an instruction well, because it's all LLM. So now I can add an instruction directly here. And if it also recommends what is the uh, action that you have to, or what is the tweak that you have to do on the action as well. So get record details is the actions that we used, which is like the standard out of the box. But if you're using a flow or something, you can always tell it to just return these fields. Let's see if it works in the same way now. It is still in the context. Unless you refresh your whole browser, your context is not removed. I'll just click on this refresh icon. and I'll still do the same. Let's see if it returns only those 5 fields or it is returning all the fields. Irrespective of what we have done here, it was able to like return it. So this is where details for let me specify read record, lead record here because it was not added here. And I'm just using a keyword called only. There are like predefined keywords which has higher weight than the normal words. Never, only, always. These are like highly valued by LLMs. So let me try this now. Only display key fields. I'll just save it. Okay, so here another issue is here. I'm saying that show me all fields, so which kinds of overrides it. So let's see. Show me lead info. So now you can see that it is only displaying the fields that we have mentioned. But when I mentioned show me all fields of the lead, then it would actually override what we have written and then like displace it. So this is where the actual customer issue or like any use case issue comes into play. It matters whatever the instructions that you're giving to LLM. So if it has access to all the fields, then it would return it. So in that case, for example, uh, instead of using the standard action, then I would go to a custom action and only return the fields that I need, because the standard actions pretty much is predefined by Salesforce and we might not be able to like customize it. So if you see a way that it doesn't provide value to you or it doesn't have the same use case or desired outcome, then you can modify this, get record details into a custom one, and then like return that. And you will never know what customer is going to ask. That would be the problem here. I'll still cover most of the things a little later, comparing engine bots versus this. But this is the key problem with Agentforce is where if it has information, then it would just respond back with all that information. Sometimes this raises as a security concern for most of the customers because they don't want to like display all the information that it has. So the only way for you to like restrict it is ensure that you return the fields from the flow or apex, only the desired fields, and then like show it again. Like this is employee facing, so it wouldn't be a bigger concern because they have access to these fields and they'd be able to see it. But if it is an employee facing, that's when the problem comes in, because you shouldn't show all the information to the customer, which is irrelevant to them. So that's where you would always ensure that you have right access or right FLS for that particular user. And if I have to do this via flow, I'll just quickly show if in case that I have to write a flow, how would I do it? Because there are few things that saves a lot of time for you. Let me go back to the flow. And when you're creating flows, irrespective of whatever the template that you use, only auto launch flows are available. You wouldn't be able to have any other flows that can be invoked via Agentforce. So the first thing here is whenever an auto launch flow comes in, you would always need certain information to be passed, right? So for example, if I'm on a lead record, I have to pass the lead ID, respective of which object it is, I'll have to pass the record ID. So I'll create a new resource variable and I'll always pass record ID here, and the data type would be text. And then this plays a key role while setting up everything. And available for input is something a different system. For example, Agentforce is a separate system that is calling flow, needs to pass certain information. That is what we state it as available for input. And the description field is a must. This is something that comes in as a general recommendation before, but then trust me that developing Agentforce this saves a ton of time for you. I'll tell you where it actually impacts it. So I'll tell the this variable stores the let's say 18-digit record ID of the object. And I'm clicking on done. So what I'll do is I'll do get records. Let's say get lead record. Salesforce object is lead and ID. Lead ID equals to record ID, whichever I'm getting it here. And when I said that you will have to like tell what are all the fields. So for example, I need the name, I need the company, I need the lead source. So this is where you get to like choose what are the fields that you have to return. When you say automatically store all fields, it will be able to like return all the fields, which is fine for developing an internal employee agent, but then like it is pretty bad, let's say as a security risk when you're developing customer facing agents. So this is the recommendation from Salesforce that you'll have to always choose fields and then like Salesforce do the rest. This is something that you'll have to do. Again, if you want to sort it by descending, if you're like if you're getting like multiple records and other things, you'd be able to like still handle it. Now, if this is done, a good practice is always solving, not a good practice, it is a must that you'll have to always add a fault path. And then it is as simple as just adding an error message. So let's say error message. Now, since this message is something that we get to like display to customer, which needs to be passed from the flow to an Agentforce action, this variable has to be an output variable. So when I create a new resource, it will be the same variable, but instead of available for input, I'll just display it as output and I'll say error message and error message display to customer when the flow execution fails. So this is again the description that I'm adding, and I'll just put please, I'll please check back later, and then I'll save this. And once you get the lead record, we need to pass certain information back. So again, we'll have to do an assignment. Let's say assign output values. I'll create a new variable here. Let's say lead output, which is display to customer. And I'm returning only one record. That's the reason that I'm not doing this. But again, let's see if I, okay, it is a variable, so I'll have to still. So since it is just one variable, I'm returning this, but ideally, like when you're creating a variable, you can use text template or other things so that like you'll be able to like return more values. For now, like I'm just returning this just for the sample and I'm saving this. Let's say get lead record, and then I'm saving this. So here I've included three fields, but for example, let's say an employee agent or an internal user doesn't have access to the lead source or the company information, then it would not actually display to them. That's where how the employee agent is positioned as. It runs on the user permissions always. So I've created this flow, and how do I add it in the agent builder? Is there are two ways. Either you go to Agentforce age assets, and then like you'll see something called as actions, and you'd be able to like create a new action from here. If it is flow, say get lead record, and you'd be able to see this only when your flow is active. So always ensure that if you have developed something that your flow is active. Another way is that I can get into the topic. I'll go to the related actions and create a new action. I'll do the same flow, get, let's see, I can't see it here. And that's pretty much anything that happens in general is that I've developed it outside of this context, so it might not be able to have that variation. So save anything that you have, and then like you'll have to like recreate it again. That's the bad way of doing it because if you are like typing something and like if you haven't saved it, then you'll miss that information. So general practice is always created an asset and then like add it here. Now, when I click on next, you can see here that whatever the variable description that we have written automatically pops in. This is one of the good thing about it. Else, like you will spend a lot of time recreating it. So, for example, if your action name is same, I'll show you here. Now, a different thing that I did a mistake is that once again. So when I let's see here. So I didn't add a description here. So this action gets an input as 18-digit record ID and returns the lead information. So I left the description here, but I'm coming back here, saving it as a new version, and then I'll activate it. Now, if I go back to my Agentforce builder, refresh it, I'll go back to the topic and try to create a new action, get lead record, and then like I click on next, you can see the description actually comes in here. So I don't have to like really do anything here when I build the flow in the better way where my input variables has a description and output variable has a description. It makes it much more easier for you to do it. Now, let's say I made this as require input. So you should always have one input variable and one output variable. That's like mandatory for creating these flows. But then like I'm finishing this. So if I don't have any other actions here, and if this action is here, then Salesforce would just execute this action because it has context from your agent action itself. So I don't know if you have like looked into this, but I'll go back here. There are more than one place to like write instructions, and the instructions can be placed in the agent actions as well. So for example, let me click on this here, and this is a custom one. That's why like I can open it. It will go on the flow, but ideally you can see the configuration here. These are actually the instructions that you write, so you can like go uh descriptor how much ever you want, so that like LLM still understands what it wants to do. So if I don't have any other action, this gets executed. But if I have to like call this, for lead record identification or query, always call get lead action. And I'll still check it if it is able to understand it. It is good. I'll come back here, save this. Now you can see that since I refreshed the window, my lead context is gone. So I'll set it again, lead. It is a record page. Okay, lead. Okay, show me lead info. And this is something where you'd be able to see the reasoning engine to see whether it is executing on a custom action or a standard action. So you can see that get lead record is a custom action that I've mentioned, and it executes on this. Since my lead output variable is holding this value, it is returning only this. If I'm returning it as an object, so if I go back here and then let's say lead, I'm returning it as a string, but you'd be able to like return it as an object as well. So when I return it as an object, it will be an object type instead of this. So let's try to do that. Now, now I'll okay, let me create a new variable. If it works, if it not works, which is fine. I wanted to show you when you make any changes here. Let's say company name. I'll choose the source as well. Saving it as a new version. Okay. Let's see if it works. It might not because it worked. Now, if I activate it, now I'm returning the whole object here, but my current version of my action, if I still refresh it, it will still be returning the existing setup. That is the problem that you'll have to like create a new version out of it. So let's try to do it. Now, if I go into topic, if I go to actions and then create a new action now, I'll choose flow, get lead record. I'll remove this. I've chosen everything that I've done before. My instructions and everything is here. But when I try to click on finish, it will throw an error because the API name already exists. Now, if you haven't given any of these descriptions within your flow, when you go back and then like click on next, you would actually lose all this instructions, which you'll have to like rewrite it. That's the reason whenever you're writing a custom action, uh, whether you're invoking a flow or Apex, always ensure that you write the in a description so that it's easier, irrespective of it, like you're moving from one screen to another screen, none of your information is lost. Now, let's say I just want to rename it as get lead one and see if it actually works. So it worked, and then you could see that lead record one was also created. Now, this is the problem that let's say if you're working for a customer, it gets a little tricky for you to like know which one is the latest one and other things. That's why I always have only one version. So ideally, if I have to do this, I would have removed this from topic. I would have deleted it from here. So if I come back to agent actions, first thing is like you will have to remove from here, only then you can delete it. So always ensure that you maintain one version. You can name it as version 1, version 2, or version 3, however it looks good for you, but always delete your older version so that you're able to like track the latest version, else it becomes little tricky. So it has deleted successfully and I just have only one version. Now if I ask show me lead info, let's see if it is showing the whole information or not. But any changes that you do on the flow or Apex is on a different version than the one that you have built the agent. Right now, you can see that it returned all the fields instead of just one. And let's say if I go back here, and this time you can see that it is lightning record type info instead of text info. Earlier it was text out. Yeah, so earlier it was text type, but right now it is record info. That's the reason it is able to return all the fields. So I'll go back here. Your flow should always have one input and output. Same for while creating Apex actions, you should always have description or the output variable so that like it is easier for you to do it. Same for any actions that you do it. And standard actions depends on your org access and other things because even this topic and instructions are specific to cloud or industry space. So you might see certain things or even the template type. So if you're on a service template type, for example, if you're developing a service agent, you might see a different set of topics and actions. While for employee, you might see a different set of topics and actions. Or now what Salesforce is doing is based on template. It is also developing templates for industry. For example, you're working on like any industry like revenue cloud or let's say health cloud, you would have specific topics and actions that are available only in that org based on the licensing. So it might not be available for all the clouds or all the orgs. So always ensure that you're using the right one. And it's all improvising it. So add any topic to start with, or just click on a new topic and try to describe your use case and then see whether LLM is able to like create new instructions that kinds of satisfies your use case for you. Okay, that's pretty much because you would, for any use case that you're trying to like design or develop, spend at least 20% of your time to understand what is the use case that you're developing, and all that knowledge in terms of like what use case that you're developing gets transferred into a topic. So uh, you could do one topic, or you can always say, now let's do one thing. So I need to draft an email. So I'll tell you this as well. So draft an email based on the response generated from account and contact assistance topic. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a new topic to draft an email. I could still do it on the same thing, but then let's say I have different set of instructions that needs to be executed for the other one and this one. But based on my previous context, I still want to like generate an email. So I can tell this topic that based on the response generated on the other one, do this. Now it would generate a topic here, generate an email based on this topic, and I don't have to like do anything here because uh, I believe that it would be able to do it. So there is an action. Let's see if you're not able to find an action, you can just click on finish and come back and add it. But there should be a standard action for you to like draft an email. So asset library, I'll just search for email. You can see that draft an email is here. So I'm just gonna show this. So you'd be able to like call one topic from another one. Let me see. Show me lead info. Okay. This is a good example to talk about as well. So you know why Salesforce specific to AI model like kind of stands out against every other solution in the market is because of that there are certain topics that Salesforce has provided as system topics where we might not be able to see it. So it says that the topic selected is prompt injection, but I don't see prompt injection as a topic here. So if you try to like execute certain things, this is where like Salesforce comes up with its own topic, which is not exposed to customers, which is available only to Salesforce internal users, meaning like the developers of who's developing the Agentforce. Where if you try to like provide any information or it feels that it is trying to access information it doesn't have to do. So any of the so the reason that we set up guardrails, right? So if we go against that specific guardrails, it will get into a topic called prompt injection and it won't try to execute any information there. So let's see here now, delete record. Okay, now it was able to show it. Now let me say drafted email. Now, when I hit on this, based on this, this is again asking my instruction might have told me to like get more information. Let's say welcome email. So it was still able to like switch the topic and then like it would actually draft me an email. But you can see that it was able to like do it. I didn't add more information here, or I didn't tell like this is how my email template or anything should be there, right? Because like this is where Salesforce stands out and it knows how do you want to like use it. So it was just one action here, which I said that draft email, and then it was able to like draft the email. Now I can add more information on like how my email should look like, but ideally like uh, what I was trying to say here is that you can actually tell the existence of like one topic to another topic as well. So in draft email, I told that whatever the response that gets generated on like account and contact assistants, draft it as a response so that like it can be sent. So you'll be able to like do this as well. Cool. I hope at least that you might have learned one or new things, or unless like you have completed the agent Blazor legend status, you might know pretty much everything that I've told you. But the instructions and other things, I don't know like if it is available there or not. It comes with experience how to write a better LLM instruction, or to start with like just have one or two use cases which you have worked on, like customers, are just think it in a way that now if that customer has to implement it on Agentforce, how would they do it? And then like just start it small, and based on the use case that you see or based on the requirements, you will always end up fine tuning the instructions, or like move certain instructions from one topic to another topic based on how the output needs to be there. Now if I activate it, if I go back and then refresh this, you'd still be able to like execute it, show me lead info. I don't know like if this is gonna execute on this agent or a different agent. But if something goes wrong, then you would not be sure how to like look at it. That's where like your events comes into play. So I refreshed it, and then like ideally whatever is my latest one. It takes time to load, or if you don't set it up in the right way, you might not be able to see the events. But let me look at an event which has like enough information. So you can see here that it executed that show me lead info, and then like you would be able to see certain information here. So this example, you can see that we went into prompt injection, right? So you'd be able to see the topics and other things for troubleshooting and other things. Cool. That's pretty much on like employee agents. If you have used Flows or Apex, you would spend your close to like 30-40% of the time there developing it, because like it should be pretty easy. But this is where you spend your most of the times for getting the desired output always, that you write better instructions or like more certain instructions from one topic another topic, that I could actually do this within the single topic itself, but then like the more the output defined, because like the client always needs the output to be shown in a different format. So that's the reason that you would always create more topics and more instructions. And let me see one other useful tool within agent. I don't know if it is there for employee agents, but I'll look into it. I think it is active, right? Can I clone it as a version? Yeah. So another important feature is that right now this version works well, but then like I have to like build a better version. That's when like you would actually clone your version. I don't know if cloning and version is available for employee agent. I'll still have to check, but it is available for service agent. But that is where it is super helpful to like track certain instructions that you still don't lose information on it. I'll have to see if we can do that for employee agents or not. I'll check and I'll let you know. This is one thing. Else, what we actually do is actually we tracked it on an Excel sheet. I'll just show it to you. We'll just create a new sheet, and then like I'll show you the way that we track it. So it would be topic, description, and then scope. And then I would just call it as instruction one, and then like it would just go on to the number of instructions that we write. For example, let's say account info. Now, the part where it really gets tricky on like very complex project is that I would just choose this account info here. I would just, let's say, duplicate and make it as contact info. I'm just showing you as an example, but let's say uh, it would be just today's date. So I would just have a version of today's instructions, and then I would just add more instructions here based on the next day, so that like you can always backtrack to the instructions that you have written initially. Else you will always lose access to the instructions unless you're able to like clone it. Again, like cloning might not be a feasible option because you'd always fine tune your LLM instructions and other things. So this is one way that's probably the only way other than versioning is to like track it every day on the changes that you're doing so that you can always backtrack to know which work, which doesn't work, which specific instruction is where you're fine tuning it. And let's say if you have like multiple people working on a single agent, then this is the only way that you'd be able to like track it. Not a very good way to like do this, but then there's no other way that it could be done better. Cool. I know we are about more than an hour. I hope like I should have at least covered a little basic of employee agents. So can I move to the next topic or you need like 5 or 10 minutes break?
Any question, guys? Do you have any questions? It's right time to ask.
Even if you don't understand, which is completely fine. I can explain any specific things because some things might be new, something you might already know. So I'm not sure.
Are we good? Good. Move to next section. Yeah, it seems we are good here.
Okay, cool.
1 second, Rajiv. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
1 second. I will hand over the mic to him.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Hello.
Yeah,
So you already mentioned the auto launch flow only for working in the Agentforce. So other flows can't work, or the any other way to implement the screen flow, any other things? Only for the auto launch.
no, not available. Right, only auto launch flows are available because like you have to invoke it from here, right? So if you're using a screen flow to like get more information from customer, you might not be able to like do that.
Okay.
But that's a good question. I think you can use some. Okay, so this is all text-based, right? But let's say I'll still show. So lead information. That's a very good question. I might have missed it, but since if you're more into development and then like wanted to like do more, since this is all text-based, right? So there is something called lightning types that Salesforce introduced it recently. Uh, So instead of just getting text-based information, if you want to use LWC to use it as a form to grab more information and then like show better display, right now it is all text-based. So there are two ways. So there is lightning type input and lightning type output. So you can use lightning type input to use like a form. Let's say a customer has to fill in like 3 or 4 forms to get fields together, and then like based on that, you want to pass that information, you'd be able to do that. And display is again text-based, but if you want to use fancy LWC to like display it in a better way on different colors and formatting and other things, you'd be still able to do it. That is one thing which is available for you. It's not screen flows exactly, but then like you would still be able to replicate the screen flows here using LWCs. This is one. And let's say if you have to like return it as a JSON and then like do fancy HTML, CSS. I don't think CSS would actually work, but then like let's say if you have a format that you want to return it using HTML, you can still do it. So that is still a possibility that it doesn't have to be text-based, rather than if you want to have an enriched or like enriched experience, you'd be still able to do it either using lightning types. I'll share you this documentation maybe the end of session in the deck. Uh, Other than that, if you're using prompt builder to like generate responses, prompt builder will be able to like return it in JSON. And this builder, like the Agentforce builder, will be able to like render that responses. You don't have to like write the whole code, rather than like return it and ask the Agentforce to return it in an enriched format, and it will be able to like do that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks, Raji.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Then I'll move on to service agent. So what we have seen until now, there's an agent force which is available for internal employees, but what about customers? A good way to like start it is that just go to help.salesforce.com, which is a customer facing site, or like developer facing, you call it anything. You'd see a chat icon. When you click on it, you'd be able to like initiate a chat and then like ask questions. Now this is the general use case, but you can see that Agentforce joined, and then like if I ask any question, it will be able to like return the response. I'll come back to this, but ideally you can see that was a chat icon. When I clicked on it, it initiated a chat, and I'll be able to like answer. This is where customer facing comes into play. And pretty much any customer that you look for, unless you implement it for a customer, it would be hard to track. But let's say if customer has any of these, I'll show you like how to track all those, if they are using Salesforce or not, if they are using Agentforce or InstantBot, you'd be able to like track it. But I'll go back to the part where I told you when I tried to create an employee agent, it was trying to create an agent for you, right? So if I go back here, so this is the new user that gets created, and this is specifically for customer facing agents. So the reason that it tries to create a new agent is that since there is no context here, the context is that I am the running user, I'm the logged in user. So Agentforce knows that I'm the user who's logged in and then like executing on my behalf. But if it is a customer facing like salesforcehelp.com, it might not actually know who the customer is and what information that they have, right? So that's the reason that Salesforce tries to create a user for you. Let me see if it is on my other pod. And this user has a name, something called as Einstein service user. Yeah, this is the user that gets created when you click on this checkbox. Now, if you see here, the profile is Einstein agent user. I think it would be standard, but you can still create a custom profile and assign to it. And this user will have like very minimal access. So I think when you create a profile, you have something called as minimum access profile, similar to that. For this specific use case, if it is a customer sharing, then this record gets created by default within Salesforce, and the user license should be Einstein agent instead of like Salesforce. So based on this, it has like very limited access and would be able to like run actions on this user behalf. So that's where it is not actually running on the actual user, rather than it is running on a different user called uh, Einstein user here. But is this new to Salesforce? No, because like you might have heard of like Einstein bots, or like you might have seen something when you see created by or like last modified by, you would always see that it would be platform integration user or Einstein automated process user. So I'll still see if I can show that. Um and most of these are specific to certain objects. Let me see if this has it. So recently viewed. accounts contacts will be created by certain users, or if you have any integration, then it would actually create the record. But there are like certain objects within Salesforce that are automatically created by Salesforce, and that would be run by different users. So if I just click on this messaging session, if I go to details, you'll see, okay, just go back to the list view. You see something called as auto proc. If you see that it is automated process. So this user is something that you might not be aware of. And then like if I try to create the user detail page, you will not have access to this particular user, which means like Salesforce has like certain users which runs certain actions on your behalf, but you will not be able to like have access to it or understand it better. But for this ancient user, we still have access to it because we wanted to like extend the access or revoke the access, and that's why Salesforce has given access to it, access to us. So when you create a new agent of service agent type, when you try to create a new agent, this will be the agent that gets created. So it's the running user, it's not the actual user. So it would uh, run on behalf of you. It might run behalf of anyone else who has logged in. That's why we'll have to like ensure that it has enough access to either to the fields or the record access itself. Now comparing that, if you haven't like heard of Einstein bots, this is the predictive model of like chat conversations, where it used to run on like predictive model. It used to be like static responses that you'll have to like pre-configure it. We'll see if I can show to you. So if you just type Einstein bots, you'd be able to like get to the path of like defining an Einstein bot. And this is kind of a predecessor to like Agentforce bots. I don't know if I can create a new bot. Let's see. It would kind of have a similar approach, but let's say, do I have sample templates? So this is where it all started. This is kind of your version one where Salesforce was experimenting how to have chats with customer, and that got evolved into Agentforce. You will have a similar visual and other things, but then like this is kind of pre-configured where you would have a main menu defined, and then like you click on it, you just get into a static path. If I have to like show to you, so if I go to performance, this is where you have something called as event logs today within Agentforce. This got evolved from here, and all your dialogues are something that you write it as instructions within Agentforce. So your Einstein bot and Agentforce will always have a similar version, similarity, because Einstein bots runs on like predictive model, but Agentforce runs on like generative model. Your answers are like static, meaning it can't generate new content or like new responses. You'll have to like, let's say if I have to show a message to customer, I'll have to always say, "Hi, how are you?" This would be the actual response that is showed to customer. But when you are using generative AI, the content gets generated. So that's the reason that it always uses static responses here. And it is intent driven, meaning that for, let's say, if I go into a model, I'll be able to like add more intents to it. So meaning that if customer says that these are the words that end user would ask, I'll have to add it here manually. Based on that, the model gets trained. So when I say model manage, when I say that there's a training that is happening behind the scenes, this is where you'd be able to see that what are all the sample utterances that a customer would ask. We would just post it here, and we would actually build the model. And since it can also invoke an Apex class, it can also invoke a flow and then like execute it. So it will be the same here with respect to engine bot and Agentforce. But then if you ask in a natural flow of like certain questions, it would always show, go to a fallback answer path and then like show, sorry, I can't help you. But that is where Agentforce bot kind of performs a better way, where it actually responds back to you in a nicer format, or it tells that it will be able to like escalate it to your human agent. So with respect to like service agent, it always runs on this Einstein user. There is a new record that creates in Salesforce. It doesn't have access to any of the objects or like field level security of those specific objects. So you'll have to create a new custom permission set. And let's see if I have that user. So if I have that user, let me see if it is a standard one or custom one. If not, we'll have to create a custom one. Okay, I might have create licenses this. Okay. If not, you'll have to go into object settings on that particular permission set. And then for each object, for example, it has like no access to most of the objects by default. But if your agent needs to like query account, then you'll have to like go into this, and then like you'll have to edit the access and provide access to the fields that are required. Again, this is where it is critical, where you'll have to think through what are all the fields that it has to need access versus like where it shouldn't have access. You can't like just click on read, rather than you'll have to specify which fields that it needs access to, and then like give read access. And you can see that it is just view all fields, not view all records here. And then like when I save this agent now has access to certain fields and object level permissions, but not the record itself. If your org is using org by default as like private sharing model, then this particular agent might not have access to it. That's where this user might need either a manual sharing, or you'll have to assign a role that ensures that this user have access to the records, else it will not return the result. So that's where like role plays a critical role. And you'll have to like be pretty strict in terms of like what fields that it has access to, whether it has access to that record or not. And all actions will be performed on based on this user, irrespective of who the user is like initiating the chat. And we discussed that for employee agent, we can always give feedback, but here, like since the content is generated dynamically and then like it is customer facing, right now we don't have feedback that can be tracked. So you'll have to specifically ask customers if they are having a feedback and then like track it, else we won't be able to like track the feedback. And again, like this kind of why does customer has to use service agent is where like it is generative AI, so it is able to like provide better responses to customer instead of just having static access. And the last part is where you'll have to create a custom permission set and then like add object and field level permissions. And when you create an Apex class, you'll have to come back to the permission set and then like add the permission level access to the Apex class, else it will not be able to like access it. So either you'll have to give it to Apex class access here on the permission set. Only then the agent will have access to that Apex class, else it won't have access. Now, security is a bigger concern here because you need to be sure when to show certain information to customer, when to execute certain topics, when to execute certain actions, because you are actually performing certain actions. It can be create records, update, or like you're actually showing customer information. I can't like just go into a website chat, and if I have your email and then like if I give it email, if I give email as an input, and if I'm able to grab your order status, or if I'm able to see what are all the orders that you have done or like any other user have done, then that's like a pretty risky thing, right? So that's where like authentication comes into play. So either you'll have to do a two-factor authentication, meaning that I'll have to invoke an Apex class and then like send the email notification to customer asking for certain code, or you verify the customer based on their, let's say, contact information. Now many customers are starting to have like unique codes that customer set up, or you ask certain information like social security number or date of birth to ensure that that user is valid. And that's where like you also ensure that the user has access to certain records, because if you're having a org by default as private sharing model, then you might not have access to that records, and this agent will not return response. So you'll have to ensure that this service agent have access to it, else it will always return a default responses like I can't find information, or like I'm not able to retrieve information for you. I'll cover these topics like custom variables in the filter when I switch to the builder. And where do you start, or like pretty much any customer that wants to like implement the use case, they segregate into like simple use case and complex use cases. Where simple use case is general FAQ or like case status or troubleshooting, they just initiate. So when I go to like help.salesforce.com, if I try to do something, this is either troubleshooting or like answering my questions that I have, without even authenticating it. But if in case that I'm authenticated, and then like if the system knows that who the user is, then I can perform like certain actions like case refund, cancel orders, and then like create new orders. You can do the same for like here as well. So right now I'm not authenticated, but if you try to create a case here within the help.salesforce.com itself, Salesforce will try to authenticate you and then like get your information and raise the case. That's where like authentication plays a key role. Without even authenticated, you can still perform like the basic use cases that is defined by the customer or the use case that you feel that there's no security risk here, because it's just the documentation which is already publicly facing to customers, just that they need more information about it. But if security is a concern, then you'll have to for sure do an authentication, and based on that, you are able to like perform certain actions. And I'll still show the setup another part, but then like where can I actually host this chat? So this might be a community, let's say community as an experience cloud site, which is still handled by Salesforce to like utilize it. But I can still host it on a website that is not in Salesforce, right? That's where like where your chat is hosted also matters, because that's where your authentication is done. So if you're on experience site, pretty much if it is not open to customer, you'll have to still log in with your username and password. So which means there is kind of an authentication, and when you log in, we know who the contact is and who the account is. Based on that, we don't have to like perform any user confirmation because we already know the user. But that could be websites which customer has developed or which customer is hosting, where they could log in or without login. If they log in, it could be either manual username and password, or there could be single sign-on authentication, which means we know who the customer is. We'd be able to still grab that information via either email or like unique parameters that customer shares. I'll show you like how to get this, but again, like this is still possible with the experience that we have at Salesforce right now, that if customer is using a third-party website, not Experience Cloud site, we still want to like grab certain information, who the customer has logged in, we'd be able to do that. Apart from that, there is something called Meow authentication as well. I'll talk more about it in the setup. And there are like certain websites that are not logged in, which means there is no authentication. So we don't know who the customer is. So in that case is where you'll have to like send a OTP to their email address and then like confirm whom the user is. So the important aspect of like Service Cloud is omni-channel. That's where like you're able to like reduce the manual efforts of like how the case gets routed or how the chat gets routed. For example, you might have had an experience of like raising a case with Salesforce, right? So pretty much everyone might have done it until now. So let's say you raise a case. Now what happens behind the scene is that when you try to raise a case, that could be like different set of uh, engineers in Salesforce. If you're raising a sales cloud, even they have like multiple segregations for service cloud. They would have a separate team for email handling. They would have a separate team for Agentforce. They would have a separate team for, let's say, knowledge. So that's where like different set of people are there based on their knowledge segregation, and omni-channel would actually identify them based on their skill set and then like route it to them. So that's where instead of like manually routing it, you'd still be able to use omni-channel to like split the workload and transfer certain work item to the users. And it could be case, it could be chat, it could be our like custom objects. That's where omni-channel comes into play. You can actually set how many work items a user can take via your omni-channel setup. I'll share you a guide for this as well, but we'll try to set up quickly for this. And messaging is where with the chat widget that you're able to like host it here is the one that Salesforce provides. But is that the only one that is available? No. The one that Salesforce provides is called as first party chats, meaning that it is provided by Salesforce where you'd be able to like pretty much customize it. But third party channels are like you can still use WhatsApp, Facebook, or Line accounts, and then like still have the Agentforce or like chat experience there. Since Salesforce is hosting this chat window, you can customize it, the look and feel, and how do you set up is via your embedded service deployments. I'll quickly switch to the new org that I created to see if I can show that to you. I'll quickly run through in like next 5 to 10 minutes of the whole entire omni-channel setup. So you will get to know what are all the things that there are there. So the first thing is like for omni-channel, you'll have to go to omni-channel settings. And then always ensure that your omni-channel is enabled. That should be enabled, and that's the reason that you're able to see the other settings. Now, when you talk about omni-channel, I'll still go here to Service Console. So there should be a set of users who should have specific skills, and we'll have a simple use case. I don't want to make it complex because Omni itself is a bigger topic. So Omni supervisor is kind of a supervisor manager who has access to see who has gone online, who is there in terms of like work item. You'll have visibility to this. So we'll set this up. So as a user, you might have a capacity of like handling 3 chats at a time, 5 chats at a time. That's where like you define your presence configuration. Presence configuration is nothing but how much capacity do you have. And on contrast, when a work item is or when a case is getting routed to you, how much capacity that case takes. So we'll do that for messaging now. I'll just name it as messaging. And I'm just telling that the capacity is just 1 unit of capacity. So meaning if I have 5 units of capacity and if the routing work item has 1 unit of capacity, then I'll be able to take 5 work items. But if I change this to like 5, then I'll be able to take only 1 work item here. So for now, I'll just set it as 1 and then like save it. Okay, I'll have to choose the routing model. You can just set it as most available. And since the routing model is defined, next thing that I'll do is queues. Queues are just a placeholder. If some work item comes, this is where ideally it sits as the first to check if there is an available agent with the capacity. If not, it won't route it. So I'm just creating a placeholder for all my chats to sit. And you can still do this for case, you can still do this for chat. Since my object is messaging session, I'll just include it. And routing configuration is where I'm defining how much work item should this uh, incoming chat should take. And then like I'm just adding my user here. So this user is available in the queue. Now so if you look at here, the routing configuration that we added plays a critical role. That's when omni-channel routing works. So if I go back here, right now you can see that the moment I added a new queue with the routing configuration, you can see that it has 5 units of work, and then none of the agents are available right now. So this is one. Second thing is how do I take work items via Omni chat widget, but I don't see anything here and I'll have to enable it. So how do I do that is if you go to App Manager, because it's an application here that I'm using as Service Console, you can do a Control F and search for Service Console here, edit it. This is itself is a whole broad topic, but then like I'm just adding the things that you might just need it to show how it works. And then like I can just save it. And if I come back here, you'd be able to see that the widget should be available here. So that's what I've done. Now, if I go back here, I can see only offline. I don't see any other status. That's where we have to enable it. So I'll still open a new tab. And that is where if I still type in Omni, we have set up present configuration, routing configuration. Now there is something called present status. This is where we would tell omnichannel that I'm available to take work items here. So let's say I'll say available messaging. And I'm setting the status as online. I'm enabling messaging here and saving it. By default, this doesn't directly come to you. So the present status might not be directly available here. So you'll have to either assign it via profile or permission sets. Right now, just for the easier of use, I'm just going to assign it on the profile. It would be the same for permission sets as well. So all you have to go is there, search for present statuses here and edit it. And you can just add it here and save it. And once it is done, if I have access and if I refresh it, I should be able to see it here as well. Now, if it is there, I can still see that right now I changed my status as available. but for some reason that it is showing it as busy. But then like again, I can see my queue backlog, that the queue that I've created and the agent here, right? Now there should be some issue here. Again, like this comes with experience over a period of time. If I go to view users, I'll just go to my user. I think I've logged in as this user. Yeah. Now, if I don't have Service Cloud user permission, then it would actually show it in yellow, meaning that I don't have the right licenses or something. So I'll just enable this, and then like I'll enable flow user as well, and then like save it. I'll just go offline and come back online this time. And you can see now it is green. This comes with experience again. So it's just that certain permissions are missing, just that I've enabled Service Cloud Voice User. You'd be able to see this. Now, the next part is where how do we create that chat button and like how do I host it is something you go to messaging settings, and then like this messaging toggle is for like third-party channels. You can still keep it as offline or not needed, but for first-party channel, which is like similar to the chat widget that Salesforce host, you need to host it. Then you can just click on messaging for an app and web. But you can also host it across like other channels. We'll start with here. And then like when I try to create, I can see that to create web development, you need to enable digital experience. So the reason behind that is that every channel that you create specifically for web chat, there's a site that gets created behind the scenes by Salesforce, which kind of hosts the chat. Because like uh, this chat widget that you have seen there, it can't like just go there and host it, right? So we need some sort of hosting provider to host this chat. And Salesforce does that via sites. So let me quickly check here. Give me 1 second. Sorry. So if I just go to Experience Cloud settings, you can see that I've enabled it. When you enable it, also enable the sites as well. So you can just type in site, and it would just ask you to like register the domain, and you have to just click on this. So 2 steps. You go to digital experience sites and then like enable experience sites, and then like you go to sites and like register this. Now, once this is done, if you go back to your messaging settings and try to create a new Meow channel, now you can see that initially it was mobile and then like it was throwing an error that we have to enable it, but now we can see this. Depending on the org or like whichever org that you are using, there are possibilities that there are certain automations that can kick in. If not, I'll tell you manually to create this. So this is a manual step. Once you click on next, you can keep it as none, and then like just click on save. So which means it tries to create a channel. Since I told you that there is something called messaging and then like embedded service deployment. Embedded service deployment is where you kind of customize the look and feel. So for that to do, let me go back to embedded service deployment. You can just type in embedded and you would be able to see embedded service deployment. Again, based on the version of the org, when there's a summer 25 release that happened, that when you create a messaging channel, the related embedded service deployment is also created for you. But if you are on an earlier version or you don't see that your embedded service deployment is created, you can just click on new deployment. You can do this. You can choose it as web, and then you can name it as in the same name. You can give the org name in which you are there, and then you can choose the messaging channel as the one that you have already created. And then like when you click on save, it would just create a new EST, so which has already happened for me. Now I'll tell you why did we enable this sites if I go to my site, because this chat needs to be hosted on somewhere, right? And that's where the site creation happens. So you can see that there is an embedded service deployment Meow that got created automatically for me. And that's the reason that we have to enable Experience Cloud sites. And let's say, since this is on a different URL, but let's say if I have to like host my site somewhere else, for example, like if I have to host it on my customer website, or like how does Salesforce host it, that you need to add the URL in the trusted domain for inline frames. So when you click on like add domain, for now, like I'll give GitHub, because for example, let's say if I'm hosting my site on github.com, I'll just choose this. I'll just mention it as star.github.com. So any domain within GitHub, my chat would be like, I'll be able to like post it here. So when you're adding the site here, which means you'll have to tell Salesforce that the site is valid, right? That's when you need to add it to the course as well. If you don't add it to the course, then Salesforce will not recognize this. So ideally, you'll have to add it here as well. So there's a documentation here. I'll share it along with it, but then like pretty much it kind of tells you the errors that you face and then like how to resolve it. So either you go into sites and then like add the domain URL here, or you would be adding it in the course as well. Now we have a messaging session. We have a messaging settings and then like embedded search deployment. Now let's do one thing. Do I have an agent here? I know we were not able to create it, but I'll quickly check if I can create a new agent. Just turn it off and turn it on. In general, like if you're on a developer edition org where if something fails or something is not working, just turn off the Agentforce and then like turn it on. I think we have enabled instant bots, right? And since instant bot is something similar to Agentforce as well, always ensure that your instant bots are like turned on as well. That's like a general recommendation. It is not enforced, but then that's a general good practice as well. So I came back here. I'll just choose this. Let's see if this time it works. Hopefully no error. Okay. Invalidating number. Don't think so. We are doing anything wrong. So let me see. I don't know if I've enabled data upload. Okay. Let it be there for now. For now, like we can still route it to the queue, but I'll tell you it's okay. Now let's assume that in this org we have an agent which could be using it to like route the chats. So we have created the messaging settings, and then like we have this way for us to like customize it. So if in case that you want to have customer fill in a pre-chat form, for example, like they have to fill in their first name, last name, email address, you'd still be able to like do it. You'll have to like check on this activate pre-chat form and then like hit on save. And if in case that you are hosting it into a Salesforce community, all sites, there are two things. As we discussed that I can actually host it in a Salesforce community or I can host it externally. So if you are hosting it in Salesforce community, Salesforce provides an out of the box way for you to like do it. Let's try that out. I'll show it to you. Well, I'll have to host it in GitHub as well. So let the template get generated. Other than that, if you have to like post it externally on a GitHub page or let's say customer website, that's when like you will be installing this code snippet. So I'll just enlarge this so you can see here there is a script here. All you need is this script to be embedded on their HTML page of the website, and you should be all good to like host a chat here. So either this, if the customer is hosting it on like external, let me actually do this. Okay, so if I just put the code here, so it's your same page, you would have your head, but instead that what I'm doing is that I'm just putting it inside the body. You can still keep it in the head. This is the script, and if I try to preview it, ideally like you should be able to see the chat window, but when will it work is that I'll have to add this website on the course as well as on the sites here. Only then it will work. Let's see if it works. Let me add it in the course, ensuring that Salesforce knows this website. And you can always see what's happening here on the console. If you go to console, you would always see some errors. And let's say if I empty cache and reload it, maybe I'll have to like review it again. So you would see certain errors, which would actually show you like this, like access to your ESW is not available or refuse to load the script. This is something that you'd be able to like check it out. But if it is on my Experience Cloud site, on your homepage is where like you'd be able to post it or any pages. But let's say if I just click on this component, if I search for messaging, you can see something called as embedded messaging and try to host it on the template footer so that like it is always available. And when you try to add it here, it will ask you which embedded service deployment that you have to use, what is the outside URL, and then like all you have to do is just click on publish. You can actually see the chat bubble. So ideally, like you can change the colors and everything, which can be done on this page. So if I come back here and then like go to branding, you can see the primary color, how the look and feel. If you have to change the agent avatar, if you have to like change the window dimensions, you'll be able to like do it here. But if you're hosting it on an Experience Cloud site, you can actually see that the embedded messaging is actually added on the footer, and you can still see, but it is pure white. So if in case that we have to change the color and theme of it, you can change it here. And in order to like invoke this, I'll go back to messaging settings because that's where you tell how to invoke this flow. Invoke this chat conversation. I can go to Meow here and you can see that the omnichannel routing is null. So in general, I don't know if you have heard of something called as omni-channel flows. So you can come to flows and search for omni-channel flows, which kinds of help you to route it. So I'll go to, there's a node called route work node, which kinds of tell you how to route any work items. So if I have to like route to Agentforce or like route to queue, you can always do it. So the key thing is like you'll have to create this particular variable which is out of the box called as like record ID. You have to like keep it R small and I capital. It should be a text and input available for input. So that way, whenever a new session starts, it passes the ID here. So for now, I'll just route it to the queue. Let's say route to queue and then save it, activate it. I come back to my messaging settings here. I can still directly route it to a queue, but for now I'm using omnichannel flow. Choosing this, I think I named it as messaging. And then like I'm hitting on save. So it would be the same experience if our chat is hosted on an external site or an Experience Cloud site. Or worst case scenario, if you have to test it whether this routing is working or not, you can go back to embedded service deployment and open it. Salesforce has a Visualforce page that allows you to like test it. So you can come back here and then like, click on test messaging, and this would actually open it on a VF page, and then like your chat bubble would be visible here. This would be the same experience whether you're hosting it in on a custom website or within your Experience site. This chat bubble should be visible, and when you click on that chat bubble, I somehow sense that I can receive the chat here. So I can see here, I'm receiving the chat here. Since it is a queue-based routing, it is directly routing it. And you can see here, I can see the conversation, but not actually see it. That's because of the settings. Let us enable that as well. But you can see the message is getting sent here. But if you're on an Agentforce, let's say service agent, you'd be able to like uh, getting routed to the agent as well. So here on the conversation, since like the platform is evolving, there's something called enhanced conversation. You have to like drag and drop it here in the conversation tab. Uh, Meow or like messaging for an app is an enhanced chat widget. So that's the reason that we have to drop it here. I'll just assign it here and then like save it. If I go back here and refresh my page, I can still see the chat window here, but I went offline because of me refreshing the page. Can accept it now, and then like I can reply back, and you can see the message from the user as well. But if in case that you were to do this within your, let's say, Agentforce bot, how does your escalation works is that there's a default topic called as escalation, and this specific to service agents. Okay. So this is a service agent. I'm on a different org because I was not able to create that agent in that environment. But you can see there's a default topic called escalation. And when you add it, this kind of help you to like, let me actually see if I have embedded source deployment that works here. Messaging settings, just messaging. I'm just checking if there is a routing. It is okay. I think it will still route it. Let me check here. So for some reason, if your chat bubble is not visible, you can always come here to the console and see for an error message. You can see here that it says that there is some like again, if I go back to the troubleshooting documentation, you can see here that refuse to frame a site because ancestor violates the policy. You can see that, yeah, this error message is the same as that one, right? So that's the reason. Let me fix it and test it. And file open source. At the end, you can see the script. So I know what exactly the issue is here. So I'll still show you. So when you install the code, I'll just copy paste the whole code here. This is a bug from Salesforce at this point that it kind of keeps a different code, but we'll have to just update the script here. So I'm just updating the script that I copied from here, meaning this. So the issue is that it was copy pasting some other org information rather than if I have to host it within my org, I have to host my chat. So I'm just updating it to the URLs that I was able to find it here. So let me see if it is saved. Yes, it is saved. I'll just refresh this page. And you can see the chat bubble coming in. So all it matters is this code being right, and then like you have the right URLs, then you'd be able to like initiate the chat here. And if it is able to like route it to the service agent, then it should be able to route it. If not, which means the agent is offline. So this is how you generally test it, that I went there, I initiated a chat, it didn't work. That's because my agent wasn't online. I can still enable it and check this time. You can see that the agent has joined. Now, if I say transfer to agent, it understands that it has to transfer it, and then like it will try to transfer the chat here. This is when your escalation topics comes into play. When your escalation topic is there, and if you say transfer to an agent, that would actually transfer your chat with this existing setup here. And if in case that you want to end the chat, you'd be able to like end the chat as well. This would be the same setup that is happening with help.salesforce.com as well. And if you have to like host it within your experience cloud site, it would be the same experience as well. But for this to happen, you'll have to set up omnichannel. You'll have to set up messaging settings. You'll have to like create this embedded service deployment and other things. And one key information about this embedded service deployment is that if you are making any changes within this particular setup page, only if you publish it, it will be available. So you remember that we enabled something called as like pre-chat form, but then like when I initiated a chat, there was no pre-chat form. That's because like I didn't publish it. But next time, if you don't see it, all you have to do is like inspect and then like clear your cache and then like hard reload so that like any of your cached items gets removed and then like new source will be there and I can see the first name, last name, email and things here. And that would be the same thing if in case, for example, I told you here, right, that if we log in on a website with manual authentication or SS1, we want to like grab the customer email. So how do I do that is I can create custom parameters here in the pre-chart information. We can create like new variables from which will not be visible because like visible pre-chat information is actually visible to the customer when they initiate the chat, but hidden pre-chat information is where we'd be able to grab more information like from the JavaScript pass, let's say email field or username, you'd be able to like grab that information. And all that can be found here, say messaging for web developer guide. So how do I work with that, or how do I know to write that? Is that you have APIs where you have information, sorry, you have information about like hidden pre-chat, where it will tell you how to add more information about it. But you'll have to add this information to the existing chat snippet that we get on this page. You'll have to add more. You will kind of customize this existing script to add this information. But this documentation is where you'd be able to know how to add more information about it. How does the pre-chat functionality works? And while you're getting error is when in this troubleshooting document will be useful. I know we are over time by 5 minutes, but happy to take any questions.
Guys, do you have any question? Yeah.
So,
Yeah, right.
so in the setup, in the experience setup, so you are at the agent, right? So if I have a use case like if it doesn't involve the agent without automated process, I like if you have a case that I want to create from the automation and send it to the create as a record. So without involving the agent. So can we do that way? That way?
Yeah, you should be still able to do it. So in your agent, you just have to configure it in a way to like create a case and then like end the chat after the case creation is complete. You don't have to like, you can remove the escalation topic. You don't have to do the omni-channel setup of like routing here.
Okay. So another one also the when you're creating the topic and the instruction, do you have any keyword particularly want to put or the we have generally put the text I mean the prompt we have to usual prompt is that fine or do you want to involve any particular keyword for creating the instruction and the topic?
No, that's what, when you try to create a new one and then like when you click on create topic, you can just define it in natural language and then like it will automatically create it. You don't, there is no like specific intent based or like keyword based things. You can just define the use case and let Salesforce automatically create it for you.
So in the object also we just put the just name. If you have if I change the use case like if I rename the object label standard and custom object label, we want to put the change that name or the standard name. I mean the if I change the account as
The custom one, if you have changed it, you'll have to give the changed name because you'd be invoking that via your actions, right?
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any question, guys? I have a question. So basically,
Yeah.
So basically, the external agent is going to be built on flex credit base, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so let's say I have hosting a agent in my experience cloud or third party website or whatever. Let's say if I don't
Yeah,
have authentication or anything, somebody might try to spam the chat, and will that
right.
impact my billing?
Right. So that's where, like, if customers asking same questions or like repeated actions, you kind of tell Agentforce that don't perform more than these many actions. Or if the customer is hitting on the same topic, just transfer it to human agent. That is something that you'll have to set as a guardrail instead of executing, like, let's say 100 or like, let's say 5 or 7 actions. You can just say that if for each customer or for each stat that they can execute only 5 or 7 actions, and you get billed only for 7, not more than that.
So it's going to be session based, right? If I start a specific conversation until
It would be action based. It would be action based unless, like, let's say if they just initiate a chat just saying hello, or like they say that I don't need anything and they're like just playing around, you're not charged anything. But let's say if they are asking a question in which you are invoking an action to like generate a response, that is when you're being charged. And that's not $2, it's just $0.10, which is like pretty less.
Mhm. Still we need to do some guardrails regarding.
Yeah, it is still getting charged, but that's the reason that pretty much most of the customers host this chat with it on the authenticated chat, so they always know who the customer is.
So let's say authentication is my first step, then everything should be fine.
Yeah, right.
Cool, cool. Thanks, Rajiv.
Yeah.
Any question, guys? Do you have any questions regarding your use case that you are using in your hackathon ideas? This is a good time. No questions? Sure. Rajiv seems we are good here.
Okay, cool then. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks Rajiv once again for allocating the time and providing the content for us, especially with your tight schedules and everything. We really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully the content will be useful for all the participants, and also the recording will be soon uploaded to the YouTube, and we'll be sharing with others who are unable to join today. Yeah, thanks Rajiv. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, everyone, and all the best for the hackathon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks everyone joined online as well. Hope you would have learned something new today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Rajiv in LinkedIn. Rajiv Krishnan is his LinkedIn ID as well. He will be happy to help you guys. Meanwhile, you can follow our YouTube channel as well, where we will be uploading the video tonight itself. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Yep.
Thanks everyone. Then see you in another interlinked session next time.